You're going to stand there and tell this room I'm wrong. The board chair's voice cut through the hush. Every face turned his way. 10 pairs of eyes, half nervous, half waiting for a spectacle. The CEO didn't smile. She stared, arms crossed at her chest, breath still. He set the envelope on the table instead of answering. His left hand flexed, the hotel valet tag visible on his jacket. Then read it out loud, she said, barely audible but sharp. Someone in the back whispered, that's his name. Right there, he didn't look up, a half moment where even the assistant stopped tapping her pen. I never asked for your seat, you took it from me, he said quietly. Her jaw moved, then stilled, heart visible at her throat. The air felt impossibly still, just as the decision, their futures, hung suspended by a thread, one truth in a room that had run on secrets, stay until the very end. It started 2 weeks earlier, under the trembling glare of a hotel's rotating sign, before anyone cared who parked whose car. Had anyone been watching from across Michigan Avenue that morning, they might have mistaken the blue-uniformed valet for just another cog in the city's gilded hospitality machine. Jack Mercer, 36, moved with practiced stillness between the carousel of idling cars outside the Metropolitan Grand Hotel, his gloved hand steady as he took the keys from a departing guest, a congressman's assistant, her phone still pressed to her ear. He wore his name tag, white letters gone gray at the corners, over his heart, but the real tag weighing him down was invisible. A canceled doctor appointment, twice now, insurance issue, maybe something worse, and an ache at his ribcage that kept sneaking up on him in the cold. It had started shaky even before the tow. The curb out front was crusted slush, cab horns layered over distant church bells. Jack worked the morning shift for tips, half waiting for the call from his daughter's school nurse about a forgotten inhaler, half not expecting it. He left her number with the office just in case. A Cadillac Escalade, waxed to a dull luster, lingered near the loading zone. Jack's battered Ford pickup, its paint chipped, rear wheel arch bruised, sat parked 3 spots over, legal but barely. He checked his phone, saw another reschedule email from his doctor's office, then looked back to the lobby doors. Cassandra St. James, board chairwoman of the Grand's parent company, strode through the revolving door in her signature black suit, beige scarf knotted at her throat. She didn't look at Jack as she passed, the kind of not looking that tells everyone watching he doesn't count. Move the pickup, please, she said over her shoulder, crisp and cold, not even pausing. Jack nodded, already pocketing his gloves. 3 minutes, ma'am, I'm just off duty, he said, words even and eyes on the curb. She didn't slow. Company vehicles take priority. You shouldn't be here after shift. From behind, a uniformed security man unlocked a tower of orange cones. Jack tucked his shift tip, a crumpled 10, into his wallet, placed his key on the dashboard, and turned just as a tow truck nosed forward. Its winch dropped, cable unspooling. Is that? Jack started, moving toward them. The security man half shrugged, not meeting his eyes. Orders from upstairs, sorry. Jack pressed his lips together, picked up the stray parking receipts from the windshield, and stepped aside as the driver cranked his pickup onto the rolling bed before an audience of staff and 2 departing guests. Miss St. James watched, a half-smile flickering when no one else seemed to notice. Behind them, a bellboy muttered, "They always tow the cheap ones first." Jack didn't flinch, just retrieved his folded gloves, tucked them into his belt, and walked inside, each step deliberate. He said nothing as the lobby doors closed behind him, but 3 people, from busboy to clerk, watched how his jaw set. In all that rich, gold-lit lobby, only the smallest girl sitting in the corner noticed the careful way he folded his pay stub before slipping it into his back pocket. Jack lingered by the service desk, his truck gone down Michigan, his next move already calculating behind his eyes. The day was just getting started. Jack's apartment sat 3 stories above a coin laundry, heat clicking on and off in abrupt intervals. The walls held more memory than furniture, picture frames, faded over a decade, grouped above a weathered love seat whose armrest had worn thin to white. Seated cross-legged on the rug was Mia, 8, hair pulled into uneven braids, clutching her mother's last birthday card as if it contained a secret code. Dad's keys jangled as he entered, boots leaving a zigzag line on their mat. Jack knelt, the movement slower than usual. "Put your shoes by the door, Em." Mia looked up solemn, stuffing the card into her backpack's side pocket. "Is your truck sick again?" He smiled, half dropping his phone onto the table with a sigh. Just resting somewhere else tonight. I'll pick it up. She fiddled with the envelope's flap. How come you always say it's fine when you look tired? Jack picked up her shoes, set them on the shelf, then paused. That ache in his ribs was alive again, pulsing with each shallow breath. We all have days we want to skip, he said, voice worn thin. He drifted to the kitchen, opening a lower cupboard. Next to the canned soup was a faded hospital wristband, his wife's name still legible, the date 2 years ago. He closed the door gently as if it might echo. Mia followed, setting her card on the counter. Mrs. Carter says you can come to science night if you want. She said you park cars. Jack knelt to her level. What do you want in your lunch tomorrow? She thought then egg salad and a note, but not the one with the penguin, the one with the rocket ship. He grinned this time, searching the drawer for a fresh sticky pad. He scribbled, "Believe you can launch anywhere, love Dad," beneath a quick sketch of a rocket. Mia peeked at the fridge where a magnet held up last month's rent notice. Did you get to talk to Dr. Barnes today? Jack's pencil hesitated. We'll find a way another day, kiddo. Sometimes doctors get busy. She was silent, just nodding. I liked the sound your truck made. It's like when you say hi to Mom in your sleep. He folded her sandwich wrapper, eyes cast down. I'll be there for science night, he murmured, dropping the note into her lunch box. Promise. Mia placed her palm over his folded, work-rough hand, just for 3 long breaths, as the city noise ricocheted off their thin window glass. Cassandra St. James sat in her high-rise suite, the windows reflecting a skyline so bright it hurt to look directly. A silk blouse lay draped over the back of her chair, a half glass of Pinot untouched on the marble credenza. Her manner was all clipped precision. Final revisions there, she directed, nodding at a brief in the hands of her assistant. Board packet to legal before 7, no mistakes. Her phone pinged, a message from facilities, valet truck towed as requested. In the photo app, mostly empty, an image lingered, a gray sonogram. She closed it with one slow slide of her thumb, knuckles pale. 5 years. She had never named the baby. There were calls to answer. Delay the audit until I'm back, she ordered, not looking up. A knock, her assistant, glasses out of alignment, entered. Miss St. James, the council flagged a new application in valet services, a Jack he's new, recently transferred. Replace him if he causes trouble, Cassandra replied, eyes back on her laptop. This hotel's reputation does not hinge on parking attendants. The assistant hesitated. He hasn't missed a shift in 4 months. A beat, then don't give him a reason to, Cassandra clipped, turning her attention to a legal folder marked dispute resolution, urgent. Her own signature, sharp as an ice pick, dotted every other page. She checked her reflection once, businesslike, composed, and allowed the silence to ring in the room a moment longer before answering an incoming video call. It was her mother, bracelet heavy at her wrist, framed by a country kitchen a world away. Cass, how's the wind up there in Chicago? I don't have time, Mother, bored week, Cassandra replied. Her mother's gaze softened on the screen as if she saw straight through her. There was nothing in the suite but the hum of forced air and one paused image that would not delete. Cassandra signaled to her assistant, send the audit to my office. Handle the rest. I'm leaving early tonight. Decisions moved by her say-so, but there were some things left unspoken in that suite. Hurt she held in her chest, memories she never voiced. Cassandra set her phone face down, stood up straight, and rehearsed her evening speech to the glow of a dark city, the one where the smallest mistake never goes unpunished. The following Thursday, just as an early snow churned across the avenue, a small crowd gathered in front of the Grand Hotel's portico. Engines idled, a child's birthday party spilled into the sidewalk, balloons tugging at arms. An Escalade, the CEO's, blocked a handicapped spot with its nose poking into the street. Inside, the hotel lobby's marble echoed with a contralto wail. A child, maybe 4, wandered toward the revolving door, bright red coat slipping from her shoulders. The security staff were distracted, arguing quietly about a payroll mix-up. Cassandra was on her phone near the elevator, voice low, eyes everywhere. A bellhop barked, clear the drive. Jack was returning from break, hotel vest creased, the valet tag straight, half hidden beneath a winter scarf. He heard the commotion before seeing it, horns, then a squeal. The parked Escalade in neutral had begun to roll, the driverless car inching toward the busy avenue as the little girl's mitten trailed inches in front of its tire. Jack dropped his coffee and sprinted, voice level, "Get away from the car," but the girl stood transfixed. He ducked an outstretched arm, swung into the Escalade's open door, glove box flying open, slammed his foot on the brake and grabbed the parking lever. The engine sputtered, ignition flickered, dashboard blinking. "It's not the transmission, it's the brake relay," he called, fingers already under the dash, finding the loose connection by touch. A small crowd paused as he coaxed the car to a hard halt mere inches from the girl, pulling her to the curb in one move. The girl began to sob, more in shock than pain, as her mother rushed over, clutching her clothes. A junior bellman stared, mouth slack, then exhaled. How'd you know?" Jack shrugged, wrapping the scarf tighter. "You see enough old trucks, you learn tricks." A senior manager moved to intervene, but Cassandra swept in, surveying the scene. "Was anyone hurt?" she snapped, voice cold iron. "No thanks to him," the bellman muttered. Cassandra arched a brow. Convenient. Anyone could have reacted like that. It was reckless to interfere. Eyes on Jack, deliberately cool. The child's mother said quietly, "He saved her." Jack kept his gaze fixed on the crowd, not defensive but unfinished. The bellman watched him, uncertain. He filed the incident away, something about the way the valet moved, clean, smooth, not panicked, uncanny. He'd seen precision like that once, years ago, on a different continent. He watched the CEO walk away, lips pressed into a single hard line. He had seen this before, 20 years ago. That evening, Adrian Gutierrez, the bellman, ducked into the hotel's back office, dust motes swirling around bankers' lamps. He searched the roster. Jack Mercer, hired 4 months ago, prior employment blank. Gutierrez scanned the archived records, no union registration prior, no LinkedIn. Quick Google returned nothing but a decades-old news clipping. Local airman receives commendation. He picked up the phone. "Sam, weird question, ever heard of a Jack Mercer worked base security?" Sam, ex-military, grunted. "No, but if he moved like you say, that's not training you pick up as a bellboy." Adrian jotted a note, then scrolled further, finding a scanned document, declined employment offer with the Grand Security Team. The signature, slanted, precise, was unmistakable. Meanwhile, in Jack's apartment, Mia worked her way through a math worksheet, the birthday card tucked under her thigh. She glanced up as Jack looked over her homework. "What's a sum if you only have one thing left?" she asked, frowning. He paused, dish in his hand. "You find what's left and you hold on." Mia's eyes searched his face. "But if someone's alone, do they get to make a new friend?" Her voice was lighter, but it landed. Jack turned the water off. "Sometimes they do, sometimes people help you before you help them." A knock interrupted, an envelope slid under the door, another reminder about his father-in-law's funeral Saturday. The timing was sharp, a plane ticket he couldn't afford, a suit needing the tailor. Another deadline marked, this one in pen. Back at the hotel, Adrian observed as the CEO's personal driver, Mr. Torres, flanked Jack by the employee exit. "You're Mercer?" Torres asked flatly. "Boss says you overstepped." Jack met his gaze. "I did what I'm paid to do." "Easy," Torres said, stepping close. "Some jobs no one wants remembered." "Some things no one should forget," Jack replied just as quietly. Adrian watched from the stairwell, weighing the evidence. Later, he slipped the decline letter into his jacket. This wasn't over. The next morning, the hotel's management office phone buzzed. Cassandra herself had flagged Jack's record. An hour later, a memo arrived. Jack was blacklisted from overtime, and the valet supervisor reminded him, pointedly, to be more discreet. Back at the Grand's marble lobby, the board of directors, seated in a semicircle, watched Cassandra address a liquidity issue. At the room's edge, Jack waited on an errand, hands folded, his stance a study in surrender. Cassandra finished her speech with a rhetorical whip. "Some people think quick fixes are solutions. Discipline is the standard." Laughter, forced, circled the table. Cassandra didn't look Jack's way, but her order carried to every pair of ears in that paneled room. Jack's hands didn't clench. Instead, he adjusted his watch, eyes steady on the table's reflection. His silence was so deliberate it drew 3 stares. Adrian, watching, tugged Jack's sleeve as he passed. "You should be careful. She's not used to anyone saving the day, especially not twice." Jack nodded, smile tight. "Some storms you stand in anyway." Before the end of his shift, Jack dialed a single number on the staff phone. "This is Mercer. Yes, you can come now." His voice was even, body still except for tapping his badge with his thumb. Elsewhere in a school hallway thick with coat hooks, Mia stood by her locker. A girl, a new transfer, daughter of someone on the board, whispered, "My mom says your dad parks cars because he couldn't do real work." Mia squeezed her mother's last birthday card so hard the edges crumpled. The bell rang. He should not have made this her problem. Late on a Friday in the Grand's gleaming boardroom, Cassandra called a special assembly of junior managers and key staff. Her voice was strong, hair braided up in a crown. "This is the Grand, not a playground. Staff interfering in operations will be reassigned, effective immediately. Further, someone has been accessing confidential records. That ends today." Adrian sat near the window, decline letter folded crisp in his blazer. He looked to Jack, who'd been invited to deliver keys, but who now laid an envelope atop the table, movement measured. The CFO whispered, "Who is he really?" Jack stood in his uniform, but his spine had become rod straight, the scars at his wrist, half hidden, suddenly more visible as he placed the envelope down. Cassandra watched him, unblinking, jaw hard. A courier entered, sliding a thick folder across the table. "For Miss St. James, from our legal office." She tore it open, eyes darting down the shareholder list. There, amid the labyrinth of holding companies, was a name, Jack Mercer, majority holder, transferred 2 years ago via silent trust. A soft gasp rippled. Adrian said, "Mr. Mercer's not just a valet, is he?" Cassandra's hand dropped the folder. "You're going to stand there and tell this room I'm wrong." Jack's left hand flexed, setting the envelope neatly. "Then read it out loud," she said, voice tight enough to draw a bead of sweat from the closest assistant. Gutierrez from his seat whispered, "That's his name right there." Jack didn't look at anyone. In the shaft of light angling across the table, there were no more secrets to keep or lose. He spoke quietly but clearly, "I never asked for your seat, you took it from me." No one seemed to breathe in those moments. One director loosened his tie, the bystander assistant looked down, the company lawyer's pen hovered midair. Cassandra's jaw trembled. "You," she began, but her voice choked off. No answer came. For once, the boardroom air was heavy with the truth. "You're going to stand there and tell this room I'm wrong," she tried again, but now her words were only that, words stripped of power. 6 months later, the city had lost its sharpness. Jack now split his days between meetings at the Grand and afternoons picking Mia up at school. The Super Valet program bore his signature, but he still slipped a 5 into the tip jar. Mia, backpack swinging, met him outside the gate. In her hand, the same birthday card, now pressed flat, the creases mapped with new tape. "You made a new friend?" she asked, eyeing the young boy waving from the bus window. "I did. His name, S. Adrian. Now you'd like him." She grinned. "Did you get tired of always being so tough yet?" Jack crouched, handing her a lunch note with a rocket and an astronaut this time. "No, not today," he answered, voice present and clear. Cassandra's name no longer adorned the uppermost office at the Grand. Word was she moved out quietly, the suite left untouched for weeks. In a city built on appearances, sometimes one silent moment in a boardroom lasts much longer than applause. What matters is not what titles are claimed or lost, but who is still standing when the lights go back up, holding close the things no one else can see. And if anyone looked into that old birthday card, they might find the start of a new story, handwritten, fiercely kept, that asked nothing of anyone except the whole of truth. The air on Michigan Avenue tasted different in spring, less of diesel and exhaust, more of new grass threading through sidewalk cracks and the morning's sweet tang of hyacinth spilling from the planters outside the Metropolitan Grand. Jack stood at the edge of the curb, his hand clasped loosely in Mia's, waiting on the walk signal. Sun slipped gold around skyscrapers, picking out the whorls in his faded leather jacket and the shock of pink on Mia's shoes. She skipped once, tapping his thumb with each pass of her sneakers. "Will you show up for science night tonight, Pinky swear?" His mouth tucked sideways as he stooped, offering his little finger. "Double-bolted space captain, I even got the night off. Adrian is covering." She grinned, gap-toothed and glitter-eyed. "Promise you won't wear your old badge." Jack laughed, his voice the rough husk of quiet pride. "Deal, I'll be there as what was it again? Parental mission control." "Best job in the world," she told him with absolute certainty, her gaze drifting to his pocket where a single folded sticky note peeked out. Her latest rocket sketch, flames and all. The crossing light blinked its green man and they threaded their way through the city's early bustle, the usual pageant of lattes and taxi doors slamming, shoulders brushing. In the tinted glass of a department store, their reflections leaned together, a pair moving fluidly through a world that rarely made room. At the schoolyard gate, the young science teacher, Miss Carter, hair disheveled, arms full of cardboard boxes, greeted them with a harried smile. "Mr. Mercer, glad you'll be joining us. Mia's homemade volcano already set off 3 car alarms during practice." Mia giggled and squeezed Jack's hand, then bounded through the doors, her backpack thumping a merry rhythm. Jack hung back, watching her vanish into the swirl of children. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. By noon, the Grand's new foyer, now open, glass-walled and brimming with light, held Jack at its heart, clipboard in hand, as bellmen buzzed about with fresh uniforms. The valet station gleamed in chrome, resurfaced after decades of neglect. Adrian, trim in his dress blues, grinned as he propped a foot on the luggage rack. "Place looks different, huh, boss?" Jack smirked. "You helped, so did everyone they ignored for years." "Nah, man, you were just the first to call it what it was. Risked your neck." A line of junior staff passed, each nodding to Jack, respect now easy, mutual. The air that once held tension had softened, pride and relief mixing like old friends in the lobby's golden light. Adrian sidled closer, voice dropping. "They say St. James ended up taking an executive gig in London, never looked back." "Maybe that's best," Jack said neutrally. "It's easier to look ahead without too many ghosts." Adrian's eyes flicked to the revolving door. She never said goodbye. Jack shook his head. She left her office key on the table, no note. Silence for a beat. "Smart woman, ice cold when she had to be," Adrian said quietly. "But I saw the way she looked at you in that meeting, like maybe you reminded her there's more than one way to be strong." Jack hesitated. Sometimes strength is letting go of the chair, not holding it. Adrian laughed, clapping him on the shoulder. "Lucky for us you showed up." Upstairs, sunlight sliced through the boardroom's vision glass. The once imposing table now sported humble marks. Coffee rings, a child's cutout rocket, Mia's affixed with a tape flag, and a team photo from the Super Valet kickoff. The board, once all hush and side-eyes, now harbored faces willing to risk jokes, challenge, even apology. Jack presided not from the head of the table, but the middle, listening more than speaking. The new CEO, a former finance officer named Lenyard, caught his eye. "We're in the black, first quarter running hot. Union says morale S up and HR backed it. Staff turnover down 30%, she recited, ticking the notes. "You could name your price, Jack. Stay, go national, what do you want?" He looked down at Mia's drawing. "Just to still pick up my kid at 3, make sure no one leaves the keys in neutral again." Lenyard blinked, then laughed. "That's a first for this board, suit yourself, Jack." The group rose, stretching, talk moving on to open doors, new hires, the faded tension of old regime finally shorn. That afternoon, Jack wound his way to the school, shoes scuffed clean by habit, the day's worries whittled to a single note. Science night. Teachers buzzed about maglev experiments and paper rocket launches. Mia stood on a folding chair, voice clear and loud enough to fill the gym. "If you add baking soda too fast, you get a disaster, but disasters sometimes lead to new ideas." Laughter mostly from the kids and a proud beam from Miss Carter. "Good advice, Mia." Jack leaned in the back, arms folded but face open, soaking in her words. For a moment, the worn ache at his ribs melted under the warmth of her courage. When the finale fizzed, an improvised volcano frothing pink, he laughed like it was a miracle. Afterwards, Mia ran to him, cheeks flushed, hair awry. "Did you see? It almost hit the ceiling." Jack knelt, arms opening as she barreled into him. "Best volcano I ever saw, Captain." She tilted her head, glancing up at him. "You don't have to wear your tough face anymore, Dad," she whispered. "You can just smile." And he did, big loose, until his laugh carried farther than he meant. Later, as the corridors thinned, parents collecting kids and folding chairs, Jack found Miss Carter packing up the science detritus. "You have quite the scientist there," she said, nodding to Mia. "She's braver than she knows." Jack hefted a tray of test tubes. "She gets that from her mom." Miss Carter smiled, soft and knowing. "And the calm in a crisis, that's all you." He didn't answer, just nodded, grateful. Alone in the classroom's closing hush, he folded the sticky note in his pocket, Mia's rocket now a small, sharp talisman. On the city's east edge, in a smaller, unfamiliar office, Cassandra St. James sat atop a stack of muted shipping crates. The walls were bare, her old awards boxed neat beneath a desk. Her phone vibrated with a London prefix. She ignored it. A single photo plucked from the grand boardroom, staff beaming, Jack half out of frame, rested on her new desktop. She looked at it for a long moment. Then, purse in hand, she walked out, not bothering to lock the door. In the hallway, her mother's voice, a reminder, a lifeline left through voicemail, played with stubborn steadiness. "You're never too late for a new start, Cass. Never too late to come home, either." Cassandra exhaled, the brittle dignity she wore like armor finally coming unfastened. For the first time in decades, she didn't know what to say next, and allowed herself to not know. Night deepened over the city, streetlights flickering to life in domino rows. Jack and Mia sat on their stoop, dinner wrappers strewn between them, as they listened to the far-off pulse of downtown traffic. She threaded her fingers through his. "Will you tell me that story again? How you fixed the car for the little girl?" He watched stars battle the city haze. "It's one of those things you do before you think, like breathing or loving someone." She considered that. "Did you know her mom?" Jack shook his head, smile winding his lips. "Didn't matter, you help who you can when you can." Mia leaned against his arm, thoughtful. "Did someone ever help you like that?" He blinked once. "Yes," he said softly. "Many times, sometimes a little, sometimes a lot, sometimes just by standing beside me for a while." The wind picked up, a thread of spring chill. Mia shivered, nestling closer, her card still present in her jacket pocket. "Are you ever scared, Dad?" He pulled her close, chin on her head. "I'm scared all the time, but it's not about not being scared, it's about doing it anyway." She squeezed tight, then was silent, her faith in him a quiet, adamant weight he would always try to deserve. 2 weeks later, on a blustery Sunday, Jack received an embossed invitation in the mail. "Jack Mercer, as founder of the Super Valet initiative, we warmly invite you and your family to the citywide Civic Recognition Gala." He laughed at the formality, flipping it over to find a child's handwriting scrawled beneath the printed flourish. Mia had intercepted the mail. "P.S. Don't forget your rocket note." He patted it in the pocket of his coat. He never did. The Grand shone anew, crystal-edged, every window glowing against dusk, hosting the gala in its restored salon. Inside, the atmosphere shimmered with anticipation. Staff, city officials, union reps, families pressed into softly lit clusters, sharing stories over clinked glasses and canapes. Adrian found Jack near the entrance, Mia perched on his hip. "Jack, they want you up front, chairwoman's order." Jack arched a brow. "We don't have a chairwoman." Adrian grinned. "Tonight you do," Mia volunteered. Mia's eyes went wide. "Can I?" Jack beamed, letting her slip from his arms, nerves suddenly replaced with joy. Someone called for quiet. Lenyard, in a navy suit, took the stage. "Tonight we honor not just a program, but a change, a moment when one person's courage made us all braver. Mia Mercer, would you like to say a few words?" Mia climbed onto the box set for her, hands clutching her famous birthday card. She looked over the crowd. "My dad always says you help who you can when you can." He stopped a car and saved a kid, but he helps me every day by just being here. So thank you, everyone who helps. And thanks for believing people can be more than just what their name tag says." Applause, wild and warm, filled the salon. Jack tried to clap, but tears blurred his vision. Adrian patted his back. Not bad for a guy who started in Valet. As folks mingled, several stopped Jack, old board members, clerks, custodians, even a city councilwoman whose mother had once worked second-shift laundry at the Grand. "That was a hard winter. You made it better," she told him quietly. He shook his head. "Takes a city to run a hotel," I just reminded folks. Across the room, Lenyard met his gaze. "You're the reason we're here. We'll make sure this place stays open for everybody." Jack nodded, peace settling in as the band struck up a lilting jazz tune. On their way out, night air biting cheeks pink, Mia held her dad's hand tight. "Did you see how many people clapped?" Jack grinned, ruffling her hair. "All for you, Captain." She reveled in it, then sobered. "Can we go look at the stars from the bridge?" He hesitated, but her hope was infectious. "Let's," he agreed. They walked together, feet echoing on deserted sidewalks, finding an old iron bridge arched above the river. Lights rippled on the water. Jack lifted her to perch along the rail, arms steady at her waist. "See that one?" He pointed to a blur in the sky above the loop's ghost glow. "That's Orion. Your mom used to tell me if we got lost, follow his belt, always points home." Mia's eyes glimmered. "Can you get lost even if you have everyone with you?" Jack thought a while. "We all do, but the best part of being found is knowing someone is looking." She slipped her card out, running a thumb over the faded crayon. "I think you're my rocket, Dad." He hugged her, a silent promise in every heartbeat. Beneath them, the city purred in buses and laughter and late-night walks. Somewhere, Cassandra slid her suitcase into a cab, pausing to watch the towers. Somewhere, an old truck rumbled, someone else's job, someone else's luck, but the same small grace. Up on the bridge, a father and daughter made a wish together, their shadows long and unbroken under the street lamp. "Let us always help who we can. Let us always be brave enough to begin again." In years to come, the Grand Staff would tell a story, not about who had the corner office or who called the shots, but about the day a man dropped his coffee and saved a girl. About a boardroom where the truth finally landed and stayed. New uniforms faded into old ones, and the badge on Jack's jacket became less important than the laugh in his voice. Mia grew taller, her experiments grander, her drawings gracing hallways from lobby to penthouse. And if anyone, visitor or staff or city politician, stopped to study the collage behind the Grand's shiny new desk, they'd find a kid's birthday card, a sticky note with a rocket, and a photograph. Dozens of faces, all smiling, none more so than the man with his daughter perched on his knee. Some stories don't end with applause or loss or even triumph. They end with a late walk home, a lunch note folded neat, and the fierce light of someone's love, a love content to be quieter than power but stronger than any secret. In a city built on facades, that was the thing no one could take away. Jack Mercer, once nobody, now simply Dad, unlocked their apartment door. Mia danced ahead into the kitchen, calling over her shoulder, "Egg salad tomorrow." He called back with a rocket note, "Always." And in the hush before sleep, as the city turned its neon dreams skyward, the smallest light, inside an old, battered card, refused stubbornly to go out.